The Edgar Cayce Guide to Self-Healing. By Patrick J. Berkery. 1. Healing as understood by Edgar Cayce. A condensed version. The reason Cayce's approach had to be holistic is simply that he was contacting the universal sources of intelligence and obeying the natural laws of the universe. Cayce genuinely believed in the God-given ability of the human body, mind and soul to heal themselves. His methods of healing seemed to be aimed at improving the function of a cell, an organ, or a system of activities within the body. He would move on to show how the disturbance within the body reflected a disturbance in the mind or the spirit. Cayce was vitally concerned with the well-being of his patients. He approached them holistically. What the body manifested was more a symptom than a cause. The person could heal himself once he was put on the holistic track. What is the most effective school of medicine? There is good in all methods, and they have their place. But from whence comes the healing? Whether there is administered a drug, a correcting or an adjustment of a subluxation, or the alleviating of a strain upon the muscles, or the revivifying through electrical forces, they are one, and the healing comes from within. Not by the method does the healing come, though the consciousness of the individual is such that this or that method is the one that is more effective in the individual case in arousing the forces from within. But methods are not ideals. The ideal must be kept in the proper source. Edgar Cayce was interested in healing his patient, to lift up the patient's thoughts to a higher level of awareness. Not palliatives, but healing that is sincere, of whatever nature, whether spiritual, magnetic, mechanical, even drugs, electrical, heat, or whatever application, to be of real aid for the body must bear the imprint or stamp of the universal or divine. No matter in what sphere or plane a soul may find itself, this law is ever the same. Construction and constructive influences can only emanate from good. Good can only emanate from God. Hence, that which may be healing in every nature, any nature, can only come from one source. Palliatives may be injected for a time, but half a truth is worse than a whole lie, for it deceiveth even the soul. Cayce was primarily a holistic healer. Through this study of the methodology of Edgar Cayce is a blend of the physical, emotional and spiritual balance that a healer requires to be effective. One must begin to heal himself holistically. That means beginning where you are, doing what is at hand. So oft has this been given, and though it may be repeated again and again, there is only one way. Use that thou hast in hand day by day, for knowledge and understanding come with the application and the experience of self in doing that which is known to be in accord with his will. Example after example may be given in the experience of any individual. As they apply that knowing in whom they have believed, with the comparisons of the ideal as the standard, as the gauge and judge, they come to the knowledge of the forces that are manifest from experience to experience, from day to day. Keep that thou hast purposed, and there will come more and more the understanding that makes for peace and harmony in thine experience. Joy comes from doing, and seeing same manifest in the experiences of others. Find fault in no one. Healing is possible only if we are aware of who we are, and we see ourselves as a channel of the power above us. Do I have healing ability? This may be developed. The power, as does all good, must come from the one source. Then live thine own life in such a way and manner as to merit the use of such power, not to thine own glory, but to the glory of the giver of all good and perfect gifts. One's motivations certainly have to be taken into consideration. Why do you want to heal yourself? You would have to take each as an individual, to say as to which may be the most successful. For there are grades, there are variations. These are in the group, as has been indicated, curiosity, wisdom, folly, and those things that make for real spiritual development. They each then require first, self-analysis. What prompts the individual to seek, engage, or desire to join in such experiments? As to how far, as to what, there is no end. Is there any end to infinity? For this is the attunement, then, to infinity. Many of the principles of self-healing, when properly mastered, will make us quite adept at establishing balance, or healing for others outside of ourselves. Healing others is healing self. 4. To give out that which aids others in reaching that which creates the perfect vibration of life in their physical selves, through the mental attitudes and aptitudes of the body, brings to self better understanding. Yes, in healing others one heals self. When individuals apply themselves for the greater activity for self, in keeping with those things that bring only the activities of being true to self, it makes for the greater activities to the associations or family ties. For when one is true to self, one cannot be false to others if the self is the spiritual self. Healing was drawing on the power of a supreme being to re-establish harmony and balance in the self on the physical, spiritual, and mental plane. All healing comes from the one source. And whether there is the application of foods, exercise, medicine, or even the knife, it is to bring the consciousness of the forces within the body that aid in reproducing themselves, the awareness of creative or God forces. Cayce is not demanding that we change totally, if we want to heal the self. All he asks for is sincere desire and a willingness to effect change, along with the courage to see it through. You are working under conditions that to you are not satisfactory, but if you are not giving your best under these conditions, if you had the ideal conditions, you wouldn't give your best either. And don't fool yourself that you would. Because he that says he would give to the poor if he had 1,000,000, and doesn't give when he has 10 cents, wouldn't give if he had 1,000,000. The same applies in the preparations of those things that represent ideals and principles and purposes. Not that ye are perfect, but that ye would grow. Come in singleness of heart, in oneness of purpose, knowing peace, mercy and grace, is granted as the faith, the hope, is in him. Healing is a pure action of faith. All the miracles of healing arise out of faith alone. For all healing, mental or material, is attuning each atom of the body, each reflex of the brain forces, to the awareness of the divine that lies within each atom, each cell of the body. Know that there is within self all healing that may be accomplished for the body. For all healing must come from the divine. For who healeth thy diseases? The source of the universal supply. As the attitude, then, of self, how well do ye wish to be? How well are ye willing to cooperate, coordinate with the divine influences which may work in and through thee, by stimulating the centers which have been latent with nature's activities? For all of these forces must come from the one source, and the applications are merely to stimulate the atoms of the body. For each cell is as a representative of a universe in itself. Then what would ye do with thy abilities? As ye give to others, not hating them, to know more of the universal forces, so may ye have the more, for God is love. Cayce is very optimistic about the power of healing, and this optimism stems no doubt from the contact that he and all healers make with the divine. There are in truth no incurable conditions, though the condition may be changed, or the mode of the plane's existence changed. That which exists is and was produced from a first cause, and may be met or counteracted, or changed, for the condition is the breaking of a law, and the healing forces will of necessity become the compliance with other laws that meet the needs of the condition. The healing depends upon the individual, and the attitude taken toward conditions from all manner of ways, or of the perception or consciousness of force that may be manifested through the individual. For the body renews itself, every atom, in 7 years. How have ye lived for the last 7? And then the 7 before? What would ye do with thy mind and thy body if they were wholly restored to normalcy in this experience? Would these be put to the use of gratifying thine own appetites as at first? Will these be used for the magnifying of the appreciation of the love to the infinite? For who healeth all thy diseases? If ye think it is the doctor or the surgeon, who is thy doctor? Is his life different from your own? Life itself comes from the infinite. There ye must begin if ye would have healing for this body. Healing is simply being a channel for the divine. If we want to waken the power of healing within us, we must earnestly seek after the fruits of the Spirit. If we would master the art of healing, we must search our souls and our ideals. Then, to keep the normal balance is that necessary for this body, in the mental, in the spiritual, in the physical nature, as to the real abilities of the body, physical, mental and spiritual. In making applications for corrections, then, we would first consider these from the spiritual angle. Not merely as something to be thought of. Make practical application, practical demonstration of such in the experience of the body. Take a pad of paper and write, my ideal. Would you begin with the physical life, the home life, the relationships between individuals, the relationship with the universal consciousness, the relationships to betterment of the human race? You should begin with the spiritual ideal. What is my ideal? Know it, not only as to who, but what it stands for, and be sure it is able to answer for any experience that may come to the body, mind, soul, or physical being. Not only what you believe, but in whom you believe, and be sure he is able to keep that you commit unto him against any day. Cayce doesn't want the person to allow his ego to get in the way and block the channel of healing. Nor does he want the healer to fear disappointments and possible failure. The body must not, should not lose courage to carry on, but working in patience, knowing that all healing, all help must arise from constructive thinking, constructive application, and most and first of all constructive spiritual inspiration. For to be in the position of using the energies in nature that manifest themselves in body, mind, abilities, purposes, aims, desires of a living entity, is to be using that which is the gift of the creative forces, or God. Use then, as ever should be, the disturbances as stepping stones for higher and better and greater understanding. Cayce will give us many recipes for healing. For example, why doesn't spot on side clear up? Don't be impatient. Did it grow in a day? Don't expect it to be eliminated in a day or a month. It took years to grow, and it will require several months to disappear. But it will be eliminated if we will follow through. It is just as bad to overdo in taking the medicines, as it is to underdo. Do as given. Has the body a tendency towards cancer? If not, why the disturbance and itching of moles and beauty spots at times? The conditions as are produced about such spots are more from poor eliminations, as are shown in the body, and the nerve reaction, as is seen, than that of the tendency towards cancerous condition. For, as we have given, cancerous conditions are where cellular forces have congregated on account of irritation, or poor elimination and irritation following, and the system attempting to relieve same sets up from broken cellular tissue the condition from within which becomes malignant. In this body, there is not an indication, at present, of any malignant serum, or tissue in the body. There are the indications of poor eliminations and misdirected nerve tissue, see. Cayce has two pillars of self-healing, and they are persistence and attunement, which are both on the mental and spiritual plane. Cayce wants us to learn his recipes for healing. He would not have given them to us otherwise. But he wants us to use them efficaciously. He doesn't want us to hoard them. You have recipes all your own. Keep them. And give them away if you would keep them. For, remember, you can never lose anything that really belongs to you, and you can't keep that which belongs to someone else. No matter if this is spiritual, mental or material, the law is the same. For, know that what is truly thine cannot be taken away from thee, nor is any real character ever lost. Healing means generosity and giving of oneself, both on the physical and spiritual levels. Become, then, a channel of blessings to others, and thus may the beauties of the heavenly forces, as may be expressed in such, be thine very own. It is up to the entity, then, in its experience, in its associations, with others, in its dealing with opportunity with others, with conditions and circumstances, to use all in a constructive way and manner, and when there are those periods when disturbance and disappointments come, to have in the spiritual ideals, the mental and mental purposes, that which will keep the body from seeking only gratifying of physical appetites. Healing is truly a way of life, an adjustment of attitudes and a renewal of the self so as to be an effective channel of balance for self and others. Let the scars be removed from the mental and spiritual self. To undertake such through those activities of anyone altering these, we will have worse scars. Let the scars be removed from the own mental and spiritual self. Turn to those things of making application of the fruits of the Spirit of truth, love, patience, gentleness, kindness, long-suffering, brotherly love, putting away those little tendencies for being catty, at times, or being selfish, or expressing jealousy and such. Let that mind be in thee as was in him, who is the way and the truth and the light, and we will make the light of love so shine through thy countenance that few, if any, will ever see the scars made by self-indulgence in other experiences. It is by thy smile and not a word spoken, that the day may be brighter for many a soul, and in making the day brighter, even for the moment, ye have contributed to the whole world of affairs. To begin the work of healing, get your own house in order, the renewal of the self, to get in touch with the divine, so that we may channel the healing power through ourselves to others. For he that hath the will to do, he that purposes in his heart to do, may accomplish even to that as he seeth fit. How may I know when the will to a course of action is justifiable, or when I am forcing my own personal will which may lead to inaction, which is equally unjustifiable? By the listening within, there is the answer. For, the answer to every problem, the answer to know his way, is ever within, the answering within to that real desire, that real purpose which motivates activity in the individual. These appear at times to become contradictory, of course, but no, as the illustration has been used here, attunement, atonement and at-one-ment are one, just as the inner self is that portion of the infinite, while the self-will or personality is ever at war with the infinite within, for the lack of what may be called stamina, faith, patience or what not. Yet each entity, each soul, knows within when it is in an at-one-ment. Everyone who wants can get in touch with the divine and effectively heal self and others. While we have physical conditions that are of the physical, yet the condition through self will gain the greater forces to give the incentives for the physical to become whole, or to function in the normal way. This condition we find then must come first from within, and the body through its mental forces gain the consciousness of its own condition, and the attributes of the mental with the nerve system, and how this may control the circulation, the assimilation, and those of the system that have to do with the subconscious soul forces of the body, that the force within self, through physical rest and the at-oneness with those of the higher forces, attuned with the spirit of self, may work within and give the full understanding of self, and how this self may raise its own forces, and not be continually blaming existing conditions upon others, but meet them with its own conscious self, knowing that conditions are of one's own forces to be worked out by self to its own development, and with this, the study of those things and conditions that are of the spiritual making and understanding, will give control of self. Control self then through its own understanding, and its own appetites, and give of self more to developing of others with its own knowledge as obtained, for this one would well understand that what we give enriches us rather than what we receive. And the account of one's self in every work is the ability to give unto others in this knowledge and understanding, and these words study. To understand self-condemnation, what does it mean? Give then the understanding of self, and add to the surrounding forces first that of understanding, of love, of virtue, of knowledge, of faith, of the forces from within, as directed and guided by that ever-sourceful force that gives and takes away, and present thyself holy and acceptable unto him who maketh none afraid. Provided a person is willing to effect radical changes in his own personal attitude and emotions, healing can take place through his efforts. Seek thine own heart. Purge it from every thought that would separate thee from the love of the Christ consciousness. Who would tell thee thou art worthy of this or that? Not through these channels, for all have an access to the Father always, as he dwells in thine heart. Put into activity that thou knowest to do, being guided by the love, that protection, that comes with knowing that you know that Christ abides in thee. Please explain the difference between ways in which healing may be received, one in which the pain gradually leaves, and the other as if the pain is being drawn from the body by a vacuum. Dependent upon the individual development of the one upon whom the application is made. It is much in the same manner as the cleansing of cloth of various textures, or the application of cleansing agents to elements that produce stains or spots upon another element. This, then, is the difference, the attunement of the individual upon whom the application is made. Healing is the use of power, natural power. It is educing the natural power within oneself, or awakening the power in another. How can one direct the vibration culminating in the head to the one they would aid? By thought. Now we are speaking of a purely mechanical, metaphysical spiritual activity that would take place. One has directed their thought to an individual, who is to receive the blessing of that power or force raised. They raise within themselves that which may be sent out as a power, and it passes to those that would be in a tune or accord. Were they present, a much greater force may be felt, to be sure, less is the strain upon the physical body. The self is the source of healing, whether it be for our own needs or the others. If we block the channel, then the power cannot go forth. Keep that attitude of constructive, creative forces within self. For all healing of every nature must arise within the self. For there is the ability within the physical body to recreate or reproduce itself, as well as the activities for assimilating that from which the recreation is to be brought about. Can the physical body be regenerated and repurified? Is healing even possible? This is a matter of form by consecration of the mind, the soul, the body, to the creative forces that may manifest through each and every soul that has and does put on the whole armor of a risen Lord. For he hath shown the way, not by some mysterious fluid, not by some unusual vibration, but by the simple method of living that which is life itself. Think no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. And as the truth flows as a stream of life through the mind in all its phases or aspects, and purifies same, so will it purify and revivify and rejuvenate the body. For once this effacement urge is overcome, then may there begin the rejuvenation. Healing then is coordination, bringing into focus the power within us and the touch of the divine unconsciousness. When the law is coordinated, in spirit, in mind, in body, the entity is capable of fulfilling the purpose for which it enters a material or physical experience. Permanent cures can be obtained, and that for this to happen, if there will be kept that general mental attitude of being in accord with the divine forces, as may manifest, we will bring the better conditions in every way for the body.